Today we are building in the Drop Karina, a $120 keyboard kit, and its most notable feature is having a frost acrylic CNC case. It's very well built with a very nice translucent look to it, 6-degree typing angle, and it also has 2 USB-C ports, which is pretty rare for a case of this price. Connect your computer with one port and maybe even connect your mouse to the other, or not use it at all, really up to you. And the only branding visible is the subtle drop logo on the very bottom that you can barely see. With the PCB, we have RGB lighting, and we also have north-facing hot swappable sockets. It's also QMK compatible, and as you can see, this is a standard 60% keyboard with the super long shift key and no arrow keys, which means every single keycap set on the market will work with this keyboard. So the plate comes separately and it costs around $25 to $45 depending on the material, but this is the aluminum plate and it's light and sturdy. I went ahead and put on the plate mount stabilizers and lubed them with Krytox 205 grade 0. And as usual, I clipped the stem legs on the bottom of the stabilizers for a better bottom out sound, but it's also something that everyone should be doing to make their stabilizers sound better. Some things I really like about the Drop Karina are the platforms for the PCB and plates, as well as a specific alignment standoff for the PCB so that you don't have to worry about the PCB being off angle when building inside the case. And because this keyboard is a tray mount, it's extremely easy to put together. You just put down the PCB, align it with the standoffs, then you have your plate standoffs that you can easily screw in with just your hands. So the next thing we can do is just plug the keyboard in and see how it looks, and that RGB just makes the keyboard shine, no pun intended. So before filming, I already tested the PCB to make sure everything works, but I want to show you guys how I test a hot swappable PCB. Typically in a non-hot swappable PCB, you usually take your tweezers and connect the sockets so that it closes the loop and creates a key press. But with a hot swappable PCB, because you have those sockets that are super tight, you're not really able to get your tweezers in unless you kind of force it in. So my method was to take a switch and align the pins with the sockets and press down on every single socket to make sure they all work. Thankfully, I don't need to press the switch all the way down into the socket. Once the switch pins and the socket touch and I get that actuation, I'm moving on to the next socket. This method is quicker and it's faster when testing a hot swap PCB. If it was a regular PCB, I would definitely just use tweezers because it's way easier, but with this method, it definitely works and you guys should try it out too. And the next thing to do is to put down the plate, screw it down so that everything is in place, ready for the switches. And the switches that we're using on this build are the Thick Thok Marshmallow switches. These are linear switches manufactured by JWK with an actuation force of around 50 grams and a bottom out force of 68 grams using a progressive spring. These switches are also not lubed from the factory, which is awesome because we're going to be using our Krytox 205 grade 0 to get these super smooth. The switch has a custom nylon housing with a POM stem, and underneath the stem is a gold spring, which is pretty cool, but these switches are also 70 cents a piece, so they're not necessarily expensive, but they're definitely not cheap either. My lubing method hasn't changed much. We still start off with the bottom housing lubing the rails, and then focusing my attention on the spring, and I tend to put a lot more lube on the spring because the last thing I want to hear when typing on a keyboard is spring ping. After lubing the spring, I use the leftover lube on the brush and apply it to all 4 sides of the stem, including the legs. Then after that is just reassembling the switch. And because this is a 60% keyboard, I just have to do it 60 more times. And then it's just another day of putting in switches through the plate into the PCB, slowly and making sure none of the pins get bent upon entry. Now we just plug the keyboard back in and make sure everything is good to go before we move on to the last step, the keycaps. And if you saw the thumbnail, you already know what kind of keycaps we are using. That's right, we are using the extremely moist POM Keycaps. I have no idea why this is on the box, but anyways, these are keycaps made out of POM and they have an OEM profile to them. So these are translucent keycaps and there are no markings whatsoever. The thickness of the keycap isn't too thick, but it's still decent enough to give you a nice thok when bottoming out. And the best way to use these keycaps is to match them with some good RGB lighting. These keycaps are absolutely amazing to look at, whether it's in a video or in pictures. They look hella clean and I'm sure everyone wants a set. However, sets like this where there are no legends whatsoever only work when you're a touch typist, aka someone who has memorized the layout of the entire keyboard. If you don't know how to touch type, you can still get this, but you'll eventually switch back to a keycap set with legends because not knowing where the keys are is very frustrating. And because these keycaps have no legends, you gotta make sure the keycaps with the same profile heights are in the same row. And now the sound test that you've been waiting for. Enjoy. And the build is finally complete. Drop Karina with thick Thok marshmallow switches and jelly POM keycaps, absolutely a stunner. And when you plug it in, it looks even better. I built this for a friend, so I hope he likes it for his first custom mech. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.